Well, we've made it to NFL Week 18. We'll tell you all the different possibilities, the clinching, who's in, who could make it in. Erik joins me right now. And Erik, it is a fun week when we have some of these games that are completely meaningless, some teams that have locked in spots and have nothing to play for, other teams whose seasons have been done long ago. And then you have a couple of these games that are de facto play-in games. So a fun week. I think it looks like 4 of the AFC teams are locked in so far. 2 divisions in the AFC still up for grabs. The South, where we can see any of 3 teams win the AFC South right now. The Jags, the Colts, and the Texans are all still alive. And the AFC East with the Dolphins and the Bills. They'll play a winner wins the division game on Sunday night. In the NFC, we have 5 spots that are locked in. We have the NFC East and the NFC South still up for grabs. It could be between Dallas and Philly, who's been struggling. And then in the NFC South, a couple different things that could happen. Easiest way, if Tampa wins, they're in. They've got the division. And 6 teams this week have that scenario. Win, and you're in. Tampa, Packers, Jags, Colts, Texans, Bills. Now, the Colts and the Texans are playing each other, so they both can't win and you're in. But any of them win, they're in. So lots of fun this week, Erik. Been a successful year, I think, for you overall. A lot of stuff that we talked about preseason, thinking about how it's played out over the length of the season, gone well so far. And now it's almost like another season starts up with this last week and then the playoffs next week, because we got a lot of sample size through the season, but now it'll come down to a lot of matchups, how particular teams match up with each other. You play the games a little bit differently because in the playoffs, there aren't really trappy spots, right? Things like that we'll look for. So now we have to maybe alter a little bit the way you play these games heading into the playoffs, but like always, looking for the best value, looking for the best numbers you can find in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, definitely. It's a different mindset gambling in the NFL playoffs versus regular season. But we got this week 18 we got to worry about before we can worry about the playoffs. So, some exciting matchups, some interesting player prop opportunities with some contract incentives and everything too.
So let's get started. No Thursday football games this week. 2 games on Saturday, the rest on Sunday. Remember, if you're in the state of Iowa, you can sign up for a DRF Sportsbook account. We're looking at the betting lines for DRF Sportsbook. Use the promo code FAST350. You can see it scrolling across the bottom of our screen. If you're in Iowa, if you know anyone in Iowa, let them know about DRF Sportsbook. And if they sign up, they can get a promo bonus right off the bat, up to a $300 deposit match bonus. First game here, important for Pittsburgh. Not as much for Baltimore because the Ravens come off a 56-point game where they scored 4 touchdowns on their first 5 possessions. They just absolutely crushed the Dolphins. Lamar locked up the MVP. He had a perfect passer rating in the game, completing 18 of 21 for 321 yards and 5 touchdowns. 2 of his misses were on dropped passes. They rushed for 160 yards. 7 different receivers had a catch. They've now defeated division leaders San Fran by 14, Jacksonville by 16, Detroit by 32, and Miami by 37. And the 2 games against Miami and San Francisco, they won by a combined 50 points, and Lamar had a 73% completion percentage with 7 touchdowns and no interceptions. But, like we said, for Baltimore now, even more so than this particular game where, they're a 4-point underdog at home because they're going to be sitting their starters, and these starters now will have about 20 days off, 21 days off in between games. This team is good though, man. This was a 3rd best team in DVOA history, so they're a good team, and we'll see what they do in the playoffs because Lamar's only been 1-3. Do you have a play in this game as Pittsburgh is a 4-point favorite on the road? They come off a really good game where they, have looked so much better now with Rudolph. Tomlin kept his no season under 500 streak, 17 straight now. And they're running the ball a little bit better. Pickens seems unlocked with Rudolph. But do you want to lay a number like this on the road in a weird divisional game where the Ravens have nothing to play for?
So I love week 18 because I like to fade these teams that have, like, quote unquote, nothing, are playing for their playoff lives. I like to fade them in this situation here. So with that being said, I did take the Ravens at +4. Just kind of looking in this matchup, when Harbaugh and Tomlin play against each other, the dog is 23-5-2. That is 82.1% ATS. So it doesn't matter which one is the dog, either Tomlin or Harbaugh. That person is is covering. Harbaugh against Tomlin as a dog is 11-3-1. That's 79%. Tomlin favorite 35%. Tomlin 2-game winning streak 26.2% ATS. Look, I know the Ravens aren't going to be playing for much, but this team is starting to remind me of that team when Lamar when they were the top seed. Lamar, second year starting, they sat everyone the final week of the playoffs. They had that bye, then they lost to the Titans.
They were 14-2, I think, that year.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if some of the guys played a little bit more. I know Lamar's not going to play, but like some of those other guys get a little bit more run because that's in the back of Harbaugh's mind. Steelers, some issues in the back four. Who's Mason Rudolph to be laying this number and win with margin? I've been on him the last couple of weeks where he's been a dog, and I loved it, but I can't trust him to win by basically a touchdown because the game's either going to end on 3, 6, or 7. You know what I mean? So I can't trust him to win by 6. Steelers, 15th DVOA total offense, and they're starting their third string quarterback. There's some internal issues with Kenny Pickens refusing to dress to be the backup. I don't know. I just kind of like the Ravens in this matchup just because of the trends and everything. Also looking at OBJ, he's got a couple contract incentives. 2 touchdowns, he gets $500K, 185 yards, he gets $75K, 5 receptions, he gets $500K. I think the 5 receptions would be one to kind of look to target because I think they'll try to get him that just because that is doable. But I'll take the Ravens and OBJ over receptions.
Pittsburgh, let's see if they can get in. A couple things will need to go their way as they don't have that win in your in scenario, but unless there's a tie, as long as they win, they will likely be able to get their way in because 2 of those teams are playing each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if they lose, they're basically out, though. You know?
I mean? If there's a bunch of weird things that could happen, like 10 different ways, but yeah, they got to win, and then they should be good to go. Because this next game is very important on Saturday night, the Texans and the Colts. Both these teams actually still have a shot to win the division because the winner of this game will put a little pressure on Jacksonville. And if Jacksonville loses, then this winner will become the division winner. Colts, they're at home, and they are a slight underdog in this game. It's basically a pick 'em here. Colts come off a week where they had a balanced running attack, 6.6 yards per play, 215 yards passing, 134 yards rushing. They leaned on Tandler, who had 22 touches for 104 yards. Minshew played a clean game, completed 15 of 23, 224 yards, a touchdown, only took 1 sack, no turnovers. Most of the game, they were up by 10, and it was because of a good performance from the offensive line. They limited pressure to 24% on dropbacks, so Minshew was under pressure the least all year, and he was very good in the limited times when he was under pressure. They did have to kick field goals on their final 3 possessions, so they need to be a little more efficient putting it into the end zone, but they were able to keep their season alive with winning that game, and Pittman became the first Colts wide receiver to have 100 receptions in a season since Wayne back in 2012. Downs tied the Colts rookie record with 65 catches. What concerns me about this particular matchup, Eric, just from a on-field matchup, their secondary is a little banged up. And last week, they allowed O'Connell from the Raiders to have his best passing game of the year. And if Stroud is on, he's a much more prolific passer. So that could be a real area of weakness in this particular matchup for this. Both of these 2 teams, they got to feel really, really happy about their season so far and where they are right now. I don't think either one of these 2 teams thought they would be in the situation where they have a chance to win and make the playoffs and have a chance to win the division in week 18. The Texans have the number 2 run defensive DVOA. They're just really good at stopping the run. They have an identity because they will force you to throw the ball against them. And when Stroud's in the game and they have some playmakers, this guy has been better than anybody expected this early. They moved the ball better last week. They did still struggle on third down, though. They went 3 of 11. They have to clean that up moving forward. But like metrics in their game were a little off because they kick a field goal on their opening drive. Then they go 94 yards for a touchdown. Then they recover a fumble for a touchdown and they kick a field goal. They're up 20-0. So then they just kind of coasted throughout the rest of the game. But rookie Anderson was really good. A couple more sacks for them, and they held Tennessee to just 1 of 12 on third down. Big Saturday night game, Eric. What are we going to do here? How do we play this one?
I took the Texans here. I actually got this off of openers when it was at 1.5. Not really sure at this situation right here with this current line. I would just kindly play the plus 118. Stroud 5-2 this year as a dog. Third game of the season, Stroud threw for 384 yards, 64% completion percentage, and 2 touchdowns against the Colts, who had everyone healthy. You mentioned it. This Colts defense in their secondary is insanely banged up. I think Stroud is in line to have another good game. I just don't trust this Colts defense. You hit the nail on the head. O'Connell, 30 for 47, 299, 2 touchdowns. Week before, Tyler Heineke, 23 for 33, 229, 1 touchdown. Stroud can obviously spin the ball better than them. He's going to be able to eat this defensive alive. And you mentioned my boy Will Anderson. He's back. He's healthy. This Colts offensive line isn't what it's been in years past. I think Anderson's going to be able to get to Minshew, cause a little bit of a havoc. And if they can't run the ball, they're constantly going to be behind the sticks. I don't trust Minshew to make enough throws. I like the Texans. I got them at plus 1.5 at this current line on DRF. I would just play the minus 118.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're on the road here, but this comes to a spot where we were higher on the Texans more throughout the year. I like this team overall a little bit better, just from a talent standpoint. I think both of these staffs have done a fantastic job this year, but I'm with you. I think at anything at this close to pick 'em number, we're on the Texans side here. Let's get to the Falcons and the Saints. Both these teams still have an outside shot of making it in. If the Tampa Bay Bucks lose to the Panthers, then it'll open things up for either the Falcons or the Saints. Now, it was really the first time in a while that the Falcons got beat up last week, Eric, and that's kind of concerning because they had a lot of losses this year, but they were close losses. They were a bunch of losses that should have been wins for them. They did get beat up, though. They could not stop the Bears. They allowed 3 touchdown drives of 60-plus yards in the first 4 possessions, and the offense was not great. They missed field goal attempts 2 different times. They had 3 and outs and an interception all in the first half. They had a 1-play 75-yard touchdown catch and run, and other than that, they had nothing. Heineke had 3 interceptions. He was graded dead last week of all quarterbacks that took snaps. He was number 33 on the week. But earlier this year, they did beat the Saints, and they held them without a touchdown. They put up 396 yards in that game. Now, the Saints, they've started to figure things out a little more recently. They got up early in their last game 20-0. They did benefit from 4 turnovers from Tampa. Their passing game has been much better over the last few weeks. Since week 14, they're 10th in dropback EPA per play. They rank 9th in dropback success rate. So they're a top 3rd passing offense. And Carr has completed more than 5% of his third down passes over his last 4 games, which is the second highest in the NFL during that stretch, completion percentage over expectation on third down. And that was a stat where he was terrible. He was 25th weeks 1 through 13. They did get a new weapon involved a little bit more. Johnson, tight end, he had a good game, 8 receptions for 90 yards last week. So we see the Falcons as a 3.5-point dog in here at New Orleans, over under in this game 42. How do you see this one playing out?
I played the Falcons. I got them at 3. Unfortunately, at the books, I have the privilege of playing at the 3.5. Never got there, so I just locked in the 3. Allen is the 8th least profitable head coach since 2005 as a favorite. Only 30.4% ATS. Road divisional dogs in the NFC South since 2005, 57% against the spread. Carr as a favorite, 35% ATS. I really want to just fade the Saints after their win against the Bucks and back the Falcons. We talk about it every single week, buying low, selling high. That was a pitiful performance by the Falcons. Saints defense struggles defending the run. I mean, there has to be a point with Arthur Smith where he just says, "Look, I need to stop being an idiot and just give Bijan Robinson the ball and just
I
run."
know.
This Saints defense is not what it used to be against the run. They're bottom 12 defending. Oh, sorry, they are 25th per DVOA defending the run. So that means they're bottom 5 per DVOA defending the run. I think the Falcons are going to be able to run the ball, and Falcons are 8th, believe it or not, defending the run this year. I think they're going to be able to limit Kamara. I love fading Carr and fading Allen when they're favorites. I think this is the game where the Falcons kind of put it together, and I'm looking forward to Arthur Smith getting fired.
Yeah, man, it's been a really disappointing year for Smith. He's got to be out.
And that game was kind of weird. Like Koo, who's automatic, he missed 2 field goals.
A couple.
Kind of got a bit, behind the sticks and everything like that. So that game got a little funky for him. And I mean, you kind of got to fade the Saints after how impressive they looked against the Bucks last week. So yeah, I'll take the Falcons here plus the 3.
Browns at the Bengals, 2 teams with nothing to play for. But we got to give a little love to Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco has been amazing. Joe Flacco was terrible the last couple times we saw him, and they brought this guy off the couch as their 4th quarterback this year. He had 296 passing yards in the first half against the Jets. In his 5 games, he has a 60% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 8 interception. Watson played 12 games, lower completion percentage, 14 interceptions, 9 touchdowns. So he has he had way worse statistics throughout than Flacco matched Watson for how much less of the money? I think he's making $800,000. And you have to give him some love. But what do we do here? I mean, Bengals are out of contention and the Browns have nothing to play for.
These are always the games I tell everyone to tread lightly on. And I would just kind of look at where teams struggle defensively. The Bengals really struggle defensively. They're one of the worst in the NFL defending the tight end. Maybe look at some tight end props. I doubt Njoku plays. Maybe their second-year tight end, whose name, of course, I'm spacing on right now. Maybe look for some tight end props. But in games like this, like the Browns are going through the motions. How much of the Bengals really motivated, and you trust them to cover this big number?
This is an ugly one, man.
And I'm looking at it right now. There's no real incentive-wise for contracts this year. So this is probably just a stay away for me.
We got the Jags at the Titans here. This one's a little tricky for me because this feels like a spot where Vrabel can get these guys up as a home dog. Tennessee is a 5.5-point home underdog here as we look at the lines at DRF Sportsbook. So Jacksonville, a 5.5-point favorite on the road. They come off an easy win with Beathard. They held the Panthers to only 124 total yards and just 2.3 yards per play. That was the lowest in a game for the Panthers since 2010. Bryce Young got sacked by Jacksonville 6 times. They only allowed 7 first downs in that game. Shout out to Ingram. He was only the 8th tight end in history to have more than 100 receptions in a single season. And Etienne had a nice game, 100 yards on 16 carries, 2 touchdowns. Levis got hurt for the Titans. Tannehill came in at halftime. They'd only gained 79 yards. They were down 20-3. They only had 187 total yards. And even in the second half, when they were down big in garbage time, they still couldn't score or do anything. That's what concerns me. Like watching them, they feel like a team going through the motions. But Vrabel, as a coach, this feels like a spot that he can get guys up. I'm not laying it with Jacksonville, but I would be on the Tennessee side, if anything. Eric, is this one of those games where you take a swing with Tennessee at home?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a swing here at Tennessee. If this money line gets up to plus 200, that's gonna be my buying point. I got the Titans here plus the 5.5. One last time this season, Vrabel is a dog, 58%. Home dog, 60%. 3.5, 3 or higher, 63.2%. ATS, Peterson laying 3 or more on the road, 37.5. Look, this Jags offensive line has been an issue all year. They are going to have a hard time protecting Lawrence, who's really banged up. He's not 100%. The Jags have given up the 12th most sacks in the NFL. I know there's no Simmons, but I do think the Titans defensive line is going to be able to get in the backfield and create havoc against Mayfield. Jags have been good against the run this season, but when you look at Derrick Henry, the last 3 games, he's averaging 89 yards per game, 3.5 yards per carry against the Jags. I think the Titans will be able to move the ball on the ground, and this is going to open up the play action pass, which Jacksonville also struggles against. And also, we need to remember this could be the Titans' last go around with their core of Tannehill. There's rumors he's going to be moving on, rumors Henry's going to be moving on, rumors Vrabel's not getting along with a new general manager, that he could seek a buyout. This could be that core's last go around. So I think they're going to be up for it. I expect a max effort. You know, we talk about buying low, selling high. I talked about this rule a couple of weeks ago, the rule of 17. Teams that lost by 17 points or more playing a team that won by 17 points or more. The team that lost is 68% ATS. So I'll definitely be on the Titans plus the 5.5. And if the money line gets up to plus 200, important to note, DeAndre Hopkins, 39 yards for a $1 million bonus, 7 receptions for a $500K bonus, and 2 receptions for an $800K bonus.
Now, these are the ones I like more because they don't have anything at all that they're playing for.
Yep.
Right?
So, I mean, I'll probably play
their guys.
The reception one here, and I don't know if I'll play the 2 touchdowns, but I mean, I'll probably play his over yards.
Because some of the guys that have big games coming forward, right? Teams that have playoffs locked in, you always wonder with them, like, are they even going to be that much part of a game plan if they can't move up or down that much? Even if it is for that money, you still probably don't want to risk getting them hurt. Games like this, you know?
And a perfect thing is like Dalton Schultz. He needs 6 receptions for a 250K bonus, but he's not, you know what I mean? They're not going to go out their way to get that.
No, but he could get that just in the swing of the offense. Yeah. Right? Because that's something that where you could see them not necessarily using that, but like he's already going to be in the swing of the offense. And maybe that's a thing where, hey, if it's close, if it I don't mind using that as like a slight bump for some of these teams. This is the situation when I look at a team like Tennessee in a home spot like this. Could they just throw a few more to Hopkins to hit that? Absolutely, in this spot, because why not, right? You're not risking injury for a guy who has nothing else to play for next week. So Jags trying to win and in. They do. They've got the division locked down. We go to the Vikings at the Lions. So your Lions now as a 3.5-point favorite at home in here. You have some slight seating positioning that you could move up and down, right? I guess with losses.
They're locked in.
So you're locked in. So
they're locked into the 3. They really can't move after the shenanigans that happened last Saturday night.
Which we could have a whole podcast on that. Lions got screwed. It was a bad call. After the 3rd time, Dan Campbell should have just kicked it at that point and gone to overtime and tried. I think, but
I've talked about that before. I talked about that on my show. I said like his emotions will cost him a game, and they kind of cost him that game. He got a little bit too fired up.
I think it was because the way it happened with the officials, right? Like, I don't know if in a normal situation, if it was just like a penalty or something like that. I think he was double frustrated that was the play that he told him was going to happen, all of that. So I think you're 100% right. I feel like that got the best of him.
And people need to remember, like, before the game, like, if you're an official, I'm the coach, we're going to meet. And if there's anything like I'm going to do that's a trick play, I'm going to warn you. I'm going to say, look, this is what we're going to do. So, you know, giving the official the heads up that it is going to be coming. So my issue was that. And then my issue was the referees all have a mic on him that is recording everything. So if Decker didn't record and Skipper did, wouldn't the NFL just release that audio?
I know.
And the fact they didn't kind of sums up what's going on. The fact that Allen is working a standalone game kind of rubs me the wrong way. He should be buried. He should be buried in like Raiders Broncos. You know what I mean? But a standalone game, that doesn't sit right. But is what it is. In terms of this game, look, we really don't know what the Lions are going to be doing. Sam Laporta needs 216 yards to set a receiving rookie record. Are they going to give it to him? I don't know. Madison needs 74 yards rushing for a 250K bonus. Detroit's pretty good against the run, but if they're resting defensive line, I could see Madison going for that. I don't know who in the back can stop Justin Jefferson. So I'll probably look at some player props here. Justin Jefferson player props. Definitely I'll play Madison's rushing yard over because I'll probably try to get him that because the Vikings need a lot of help. Vikings are basically eliminated in my eyes.
Yeah, so they need a win and a Packers loss, a Seahawks loss, and a Tampa loss, or a Packers loss, Seattle loss, New Orleans loss. So
they need a lot of help. So I mean,
yeah.
I think they try to get Madison paid, but other than that, I'll look to play Madison props. Other than that, I'm just probably going to be skipping this game.
Let's get to the Jets at the Patriots here. This one's a funny one because these two teams have 0 to play for, but they don't like each other. The Patriots, they ran the kick back on the opening drive to take an early lead against the Bills, and then things went wrong. They turned it over 4 times in the first half, 3 of them because of Zappy. It's going to be the first time in 18 years where they have a negative turnover differential this year. That was the longest streak since the 1970 merger. They missed another field goal, like their special teams, the turnover margin. There were some years where their offense wasn't great, even with Brady, where like they didn't have the most fantastic offense in the world, but they always were smart, didn't turn the ball over a lot, and they had good special teams. And it's the total opposite this year. I mean, the Jets got absolutely shredded, their defense, especially in the middle of the field, and they could not move the ball at all, except for Hall, who's had over 100 yards from scrimmage the last 2 weeks. Any thoughts on this game? Jets at the Pats here, as the Pats are a slight favorite, 1.5 at home.
I kind of want to play the Pats, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. Trevor Siemian against this Patriots defense. Do you trust? The guys will probably be pumped up for Belichick's rumor as it's last game. But the flip side, Siemian against this Jets passing defense, not Siemian, Sappy against this Jets passing defense is a little rough. I would lean there, but look, I'm not going to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me to have strong opinion one way or the other. Bucks head to Carolina as a 4.5 point favorite. They're over under just 37.5. Tampa, it's simple. Win and you're in. Even after the loss last week, all they have to do is beat the Panthers, the worst team in the league, and they will host a playoff game this year. Last week, though, the Bucks couldn't block through a lot of the game. Their receivers couldn't get open, and they couldn't run the ball. Their first 8 drives that were not kneel downs, 4 of them were 3 and outs. They had 2 interceptions and a fumble. They finally scored a point in the fourth quarter. And it was a little disappointing because after a few weeks of establishing more of a running game, they only had 57 yards rushing on 15 carries, 3.8 yards per carry. It's tough when you're down to try to stay consistent with the run. Baker was uncomfortable a lot of the day. He never really looked good in this game, and he had been much better in previous weeks. Yeah, man, then the Panthers. They had 124 total yards on 10 drives. 2.3 yards per play. They had 7 first downs in the game. There was a stretch of 3 consecutive drives. They went -8 yards, -13 yards, and then 0 yards. So they had a stretch of 9 plays on those 3 drives where they had -22 yards. And they had 6 drives in the game that ended with a punt, and all of those were 3 and outs. 3 and out punt, 3. And then your owner's throwing drinks on fans, which is just
Did you
great.
hear that story where he worked at a company, he got passed over for this promotion, so he started his own hedge fund company, and the guy that got passed over for the promotion, the guy who passed him for the promotion, ended up buying that guy's house, tearing it down, and building a bigger house on a lot of land. Like,
yeah, he's
here's
just
the thing.
all ego.
All ego, and he kind of reminds me of, I'm trying to think of, like, probably when William Clay Ford was running the Lions. You know what I mean? Like, it was just such a shit show, and he was just obviously there for the money. I know he's saying he wants to have a competitive team, but you kind of look at it. If you're a coach, why are you going to want to go there? Like, honestly, when this guy has a history of firing coaches early, he's breathing over your neck. If I'm Eric Bieniemy, I'm Ben Johnson. If I have my choice between going to the Commanders, Chargers, maybe the Bears, maybe the Falcons, or the Panthers are going to be at the bottom of the list. Plus, they have no draft equity because they made that draft for pick. They made that draft day trade and got Bryce Young. So this is the least desirable coaching job in the NFL in my eyes. But with all that being said, I got them off openers at plus 5.5. I still like them at anything over 4. You have the NFC dog trend that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Mayfield 13, 26 and 1. ATS is a favorite, 33.3%. And when you just kind of look at the splits, this Panthers defense is actually good. It's actually really good at home. The only team that really lit them up was the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't think the Buccaneers offense will be able to do that. And like I said, I love fading teams that need to win. And that's what I'm doing this week. Any team that kind of quotes and quotes needs to win, I'm looking to fade them. So with that being said, I'm going to take the Panthers here. Again, if this is a money line gets to plus 200, I'm going to look to do that. People need to remember a couple years ago, the Jaguars beat the Colts when the Colts needed to win to get in. I think there's going to be a couple surprises on Sunday, and I think the Panthers are one of them.
Yeah, one of the games that I'm glad I locked in earlier, Eric, was the Bears at the Packers. I played the Bears at plus 4.5. This number is all the way down to 3 now. Packers are a 3-point favorite in this game. Love's been playing really well. He finished graded quarterback number 2 on the week last week. He had 4 touchdowns, 4 big-time throws. He threw for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns, ran for another. It was his second highest passer rating on the year, third highest completion percentage of the year. And right now they're a little bit healthier. Jones has had a couple of nice games, 120 rushing yards in this game, 2 in a row now with 100-plus yards. He had 21 total touches. They had Bo Melton elevated from the practice squad, 6 catches, 105 yards receiving. And the defense, which has been miserable, did a good job putting pressure on the quarterback, 50% of dropbacks, which was the third highest rate in any game this year. They had 13 different defenders generate at least 1 pressure, which was the most to do so for a team in any game this year. And they forced some turnovers that led directly to points. Overall, one of their better defensive performances. But the Bears have been playing really good football. They scored touchdowns of 60-plus yards on 3 of their first 4 drives to put them up 21-7. They even missed a field goal at the end of the half with a chance to get up by more. They had a couple drops in the game. Fields was very good again. He was graded quarterback number 9 on the week. The last 7 games that he's completed, he started and finished, they're 5-2. The 2 losses are to the Lions and the Browns. They started 0-4 this year. Since then, they've won 7 of 12 overall, even with Bajent in a lot of those games. They have a 49 plus point differential. Their offensive line has been good. It was the lowest pressure rate he's faced in a game this season. More quietly, he has 1,300 yards. That's the 5th most ever for a Bears receiver in a single season. And they are 7th in the league in weighted DVOA. They're 5th in defensive DVOA this year. And since week 9, they're 4th in defensive DVOA. This team's just been playing good now for a while. They've figured things out. It's really frustrating to watch, Eric, because it seems like the same exact thing happened last year. And then early on in this year, they went away from some of the things that got them successful and in a groove at the end of last year. You were watching it like, what the hell are they doing? And once they started to make things easier for Fields again, they've been a really good team. I played them at 4.5. At 3 or over, I'd still be okay for that with them. And I'd want to obviously look for the best number you could find.
Yeah, I missed that number. I got him at 3. Excuse me. My thing with Jordan Love is when you watch him play, everything's off the back foot. Everything sails. And I really don't like quarterbacks that don't step into their throws. That can lead to some turnovers. He did play one good game. He's had a couple good games. Games against the Vikings are pretty good. Games against the Chiefs are pretty good. But if you rewatch the game film, like I said, everything is off the back foot. Everything is floating. And when you play a game where there could be some weather issues because there's a wet storm front moving through the Midwest, that's not who I like to back. I like to fade there. You know, we have the divisional dog aspect I absolutely love. Packers do struggle against mobile quarterbacks. I think Fields is going to have his way. Also, they do struggle defending the run. I think we're going to see a heavy Bears rushing attack led by Roscoe Johnson and Khalil Herbert. Bears are elite against the run. I think they're going to be able to limit Dillon and Jones and then make Love make some throws. I just don't like what I'm seeing from Jordan Love. I know he's getting a lot of credit for beating the Vikings, but I really feel if the Vikings had a different quarterback, that game would have been a little different last week. So I'm gonna take the Bears here plus the 3.
We get to the Cowboys at the Commanders. So Dallas is a 13-point favorite in this game. They win, they clinch the division. They'll get a home game here. As Washington, they're one of these teams I really don't know what to expect from, though. This is a massive number for them being a 13-point home dog, especially when they come off of a pretty good effort. Howell tried really hard in the first half. He completed 9 of 13 against San Francisco. He had 100 yards and a touchdown. They're only down 3 at half. They get the ball to start the second half, but they go 3 and out. San Francisco scores a touchdown. They throw an interception, and then San Francisco scores another touchdown. All of a sudden, you go from being down 3 to down 17 in just a few minutes, and then the game's over. But this is a divisional game, too. I'm sure there's nothing more they'd like than to at least give Dallas a tough game here. Dallas, it's tough for me to figure out what to do with them coming off of a stretch of games where they haven't really looked great. They should have lost to the Lions in that game if the 2-point conversion was just called correctly. They had a couple mistakes there. Some of the same concerns we have with them. They had the ball with a chance to try to run it out after the Lions turned it over. And they couldn't run it out or complete and move the ball down the field and score a touchdown to get up 2 scores. They were only able to kick a field goal to keep it a 1-score game. There was an incompletion. They stopped the clock. Just bad management, right? Things like that are what I worry about with Dallas against the better teams. I'd be okay playing Washington in here. I'm going to wait for it to see if we can get it up to 14, though, and then we can get like 14 and a half, because I think we probably can. Erik, what about you in this game? Cowboys, Commanders.
I'm doing nothing in this game. Like, I want nothing to do with this. I'm just going to be on the sidelines. The thing to remember is the Cowboys game and the Eagles game are tied with each other. So if the Cowboys win, they have the East locked up. So if they get out to an early lead, the Eagles are probably going to pull all their starters. And then kind of vice versa, if you know what I mean? Like, both those games are tied in with each other. So if you're betting either of those games, you kind of have to watch them.
They're difficult to really gauge.
Stuff, like,
because like, for Philly, and think about it, it's not a bad spot to be in. Obviously, you want a home game, right? I know that that's what you want. But it's the difference between these two. It's not a bad spot to go play that NFC South team.
No, not at all.
On the road.
Like, you're gonna
play the Saints, the Falcons, or the Bucks. Are you terrified about that game on the road? So you're right. If you're the Eagles, especially, Cowboys get up a little bit here early. Cowboys are up by 14 or they're up by 20. Is Dak going to be in the game late in the game? Are they going to be trying to run it up? And then if Philly sees that, do they just say, hey, screw it, we're not going to risk Hurts or anyone else getting banged up. We don't mind going on.
They've been struggling so much. Are they going to try to
that's a great point, because they're not in that situation where you feel like they can just give away reps right now. They got to try to figure some things out and get a little bit of a good feel, at least with a guy like A.J. Brown, the Eagles, heading into next week. So I think with both of these games, I'm just going to stay away from them because of all those factors.
Yeah, both those games are kind of tied. I'm absolutely staying away from both of them. Maybe if the Cowboys get up to an early lead, maybe I'll look to take the Giants live. That would be the only thing I'd do here.
We go Broncos at the Raiders, another situation where two teams have absolutely nothing in here to play for. The Raiders are a 3-point favorite in this game, over under 38. The Raiders go last week playing the Colts. They go 54 yards on their opening drive, kick a field goal. But then after that, they had to punt on their next 3 possessions, and they're down by 11 at halftime. They started to improve offensively in the second half. They just couldn't stop the Colts, who were able to kick field goals on 3 drives. And the Colts took a lot of time off the clock, going 5 minutes on 2 of those drives. They couldn't get the onside kick late in the game, but they were able to cover, for those of us who had a 3.5 plus 3.5 on the Raiders. They went out offsides on a missed field goal, and that ended up being the difference in the game, because the Colts got a chance to kick that field goal again earlier in the game. So some little mistakes here and there. Broncos are eliminated from playoff contention, even with the win last week. Stidham was fine. He didn't do much. He actually graded quarterback 33 on the week. They just didn't ask him to do a whole lot. He was 20 of 32, 224 yards and a touchdown. He wasn't all that accurate. They only scored one touchdown in the game. But we got to give the Broncos some credit because this defense did improve a lot throughout the year. They gave up 70 points earlier in the year and were one of the worst defenses historically that we'd ever seen at different stretches of the season. And they did just show you that they had pride and they became quite a different defense in the second half of the year. Can you do anything in this game where these two teams have zero really to play for? Or you think the Raiders are playing for the coach here or Pierce?
I have no idea what to do here. I mean, obviously, selfishly, I need this game for the Broncos to go over their win total, so I'll be rooting for that. In terms of this actual game, I'll probably look to take Raiders tight end props. We need to monitor the health of Mayer just because the Broncos are so bad defending the tight end. I'll play some Mayer props, but in terms of side, look, Raiders are starting O'Connell. I know he's looked good, but Vance Joseph defense has gotten better. Their weakness is defending the tight end. Zamir White is going to play. It doesn't look like Josh Jacobs is going to go. Do you trust this Raiders offense to move the ball against a decent defense, which has been playing better? Flip side, you have Jarrett Stidham, who's, just kind of there because they don't want to play Russ. How much is this Broncos team going to be motivated? But on the flip side, there's a lot of guys in that team that probably aren't going to be there, so they're looking to put stuff on film. Tricky game to cap, but I'll just look for Mayer receiving props just because the Broncos do give up the most yards per game to opposing tight ends.
The guys I was listening to on one of the shows, I can't remember. They had a couple good names for Stidham. I think they were calling him either the Grim Reaper or the Undertaker. They're like, Stidham's the guy they bring in when your starting quarterback is done. Because Stidham's not a guy that you think is going to be your future guy. He's just like, hey, Stidham's the guy we're just going to have for the next few games. He did the same exact thing for the Raiders last year.
Yeah.
When they were done with Carr. It was like, Carr's done. Let's just get Stidham in there for a few games. It's like, let's play the Undertaker's music. Here it comes. Carr, you're done. Adios, Russell Wilson. Get out of here. You heard Jarrett Stidham's music being played. I have no idea what to do in this game with these two teams. We move to the Chiefs at the Chargers. Chargers are a 3.5-point favorite in this game. This is another weird one because the Chiefs have nothing to play for. They have clinched the division. They can't move up or down. They're going to get a home game. It's their 8th straight AFC West. So I can't imagine you get a whole lot of Mahomes or Kelsey in this game, especially the older guys. They were kind of like the Eagles too, to where you wanted to see them play a little better. They played a little better last week. Mahomes graded quarterback 12. He had a couple big time throws. What was nice to see from them, explosive plays, which they hadn't been doing a whole lot. He had 4 20-plus pass plays in the game, and they had 2 big run plays from Pacheco. But the offense averaged 7 yards per play, 373 total yards. So that was all good, but 1 of 3 in the red zone. They had a turnover, another bad drop. It was Valdez Scantling in this game who didn't look very good a couple different times. They were only 3 of 12 on third down. They had to settle for 6 field goals in the game. The last 6 scores in that game were Harrison Butker field goals, which is crazy. But they did run the ball a little better. If you're the Chiefs, you feel better than if you were the Eagles because at least your offense was competent and you got short and you couldn't execute in the red zone, but you moved the ball and you made some explosive plays. This is a number that tells you they don't expect any of the Chiefs players to play. We're going to get some Easton Stick, baby. He was graded quarterback 23 last week. He did have 5 carries for 31 yards. I mean, if I was looking to play something in here, I actually wouldn't mind playing some Easton Stick rushing props if you can find them out there. Because I think you could see him try to make plays in this game. I think a guy like him is auditioning for a backup role. He's trying to show that he can be a backup next year. That would probably be the way I attack this game. Can he at least show, hey, look, I can move the ball, I can run, I can pick up some first downs here? Other than that, I don't really know how to touch this game.
Yeah, it's hard because you hit the nail on the head. We really don't know what Chiefs are going to be playing. The one thing I'm looking at right now is Austin Eckler. For 110 total yards, he gets a 100K bonus. Is that something they're going to look to do for him? Who's
Especially because after
possibly
he got screwed over with the other money stuff, right?
so maybe they'll look to do that. Maybe I'll look to play his total yards prop over. But in terms of like side or anything, this week's kind of tough just because it's still early in the week and we really don't know who's playing and who's not playing.
And we'll know again by Sunday morning. If you want to join us at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time for NFL Betting Blitz for the final this week. And again, remember, don't feel, oh my God, last week of the NFL, I got to get all these bets in. We have a lot coming up. We have a lot of playoffs coming up. We have extra teams making the playoffs right now. There's still plenty of football left. Don't force every game and don't feel like you have to just because it's the final week. We'll still have plenty of opportunities for action over the next month and a half. Where do we go next, Eric? The Rams at the 49ers. So 49ers, they are locked in as the number one seed. They're going to get bye and home field advantage through the NFC. It was a nice bounce back game for them. They dominated time of possession, 408 total yards, 28 first downs. They scored on 5 of their 7 actual possessions. Purdy, how about this? Brock Purdy set a single season passing record for the franchise. A franchise that had one.
Crazy.
I didn't even realize that or think about that. 4,280 yards. And what's makes it impressive is that he did it in the 16 games too. It wasn't like the additional game that was the reason why he had 400 yards in that extra game and that pushed him over. McCaffrey did get banged up. He's not going to play this week. I don't know how much we can expect, but the same sort of for the Rams, right? Both of these teams are kind of locked into their spots. And if I'm the Rams, I don't want Stafford out there getting banged up, getting hurt.
Yeah, they already announced that Carson Wentz time.
There we go, baby. Wentz time.
So this is Wentz against Darnold. Rams have announced no Puka, no Kupp, no Williams, no Stafford, no Jones, no Donald. They're basically just resting everybody.
And that's smart for them. They have no reason to risk anyone because they can't move up or down anywhere.
Yeah. So, but on the flip side, I could honestly see the 49ers resting a lot of people as well. Too. Because of that, this is another game where there's just not much you can do because you really don't know what's going to be going on.
Can't touch it. We continue along. We go Eagles at the Giants, and we were previewing this one a little earlier. We were talking about the Cowboys game. Same sort of situation for this one. The Eagles are a 5-point favorite here. They want to try to win the division if possible, but if Dallas is up in their game and Dallas is favored by 13 right now, then the Eagles are going to look over and say, okay, we're not going to really go all out to worry too much about this game because we don't want to let our quarterback or A.J. Brown or anyone get hurt when they're banged up already. But as you pointed out, they gotta feel good about themselves a little bit coming out of this game, even if it's just for a half of your starters where you get 2 good drives and you sort of reestablish A.J. Brown. They feel like they need to get a little something. All that being said, again, I'm not forcing it on this type of a game. I'm not playing the Eagles in this spot. If anything, I would actually be fine playing the Giants at home plus the 5. They've played really well with Tyrod. They should have beat the Rams last week. They had 389 total yards. The game, both the teams were really sloppy, but the Giants missed a field goal that would have won the game from 54 yards. So it wasn't 64. It was a makeable field goal from 54. And earlier in the game, they missed a 2-point conversion. They actually gained 3 turnovers from the Rams, but they did not win that game. It was an ugly game for the Rams, and it was nice for them to just win that game and clinch their playoff spot. For me, this is Giants or nothing.
Yeah, Taylor, 63% ATS as a dog. And I really think we need to talk about this Eagles defense. 27th total DVOA, 29th pass DVOA, 19th rush DVOA.
Over the last 6 games, they're giving up more than 31 points a game. They've given up 51 points in the second half of games to the Giants and the Cardinals in back-to-back weeks at home, those two teams were ranked 31st and 24th in offense this year. How about this one? Arizona hadn't hit 30 points all year. The highest they scored in any game this year was 29. Arizona scored 29 in the second half last week against the Eagles.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane when you think about it. And they're just missing Gannon. You know what I mean? It just comes down to the end of the line.
You hit this at the beginning of the year, both coordinators. Both of those guys have gone on. Gannon, it's like he looked like the guy that was in their huddle on every play. It's like the way that he was running his offense against their defense couldn't, he knew where to beat their defense every time and how to beat them.
Yeah. And it's just, they have went to calling Matt Patricia as their you know what I mean? Like that's how bad it is. And
they rank 30th in the league in third down conversions. They're 46.4%. And like you said, since taking over the defensive play calling duties, the Eagles, have allowed 29 points per second half, which is just nuts. They allowed Arizona to score touchdowns on 4 straight possessions. If you look at the box score for this game, it's pretty nuts. Arizona had 32 first downs. The Eagles had 17. Arizona had 449 total yards. The Eagles had 275. They allowed Arizona to get into the red zone 6 times, and Arizona had 220 yards rushing. They had almost double the time of possession. The Cardinals held the ball for 39 minutes compared to just 20 minutes for the Eagles. That was as ugly as a game as they've had all year. They were actually lucky they got up earlier in that game and the score was as close as it was. They should have gotten beat by 30 in a game like that.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was a bad showing. And A.J. Brown is obviously upset. There's obviously a lot of issues going on in that locker room. But it just kind of shows like they're going to need a new offensive coordinator. They're going to need a new defensive coordinator. They're going to reset. Obviously, Howie does such a great job of bringing talent in. I'm not really worried about them long term. But this season, there is a little bit legit concern just because of the issues they're having on the back end of the defense not being able to stop the run, and the offensive issues. So I'm not going to do anything here, but I may be fading the Eagles come playoff time. And I mean, think about that. Think about saying that at week 7, week 8. I mean, it shows you how quick the NFL can turn.
Yeah, 6-week stretch, right? 125 yards every week. And then he's had one game with 100-plus receiving yards since week 9 has A.J. Brown. We get to Seahawks at the Cardinals. We were just talking about this Cardinals team who come off of playing a really good game against Philly. And they've not been great throughout the year, but they're 3-4 in their last 7 games with Murray in the lineup. It was actually the first game this year of 100-plus passer rating for him. That just shows you how bad the Eagles defense has been too. For the Seahawks, game was tied with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter against the Steelers. They just couldn't get stops. Pittsburgh scores on 2 of their next 3 drives. Seattle's only able to kick a field goal. Then they fumble. Pittsburgh gets a short field. All of a sudden, Seahawks are down by 10. They scored 23 points. They had 7.5 yards per play. They had 369 total yards. They couldn't stop the run. They allowed 202 yards rushing. And now they're actually going to play a team that just had an incredible game on the ground as well, where the Eagles couldn't stop them, and they ran for 221 yards on the ground. So matchup-wise, if Seattle can't stop the run here, they're going to be running into a bad team that's actually going to try to lean on the run with Connor and with Murray. Seattle also made a few costly mistakes on offense. They had a fumble on a strip sack. They lost a timeout on a challenge. They dropped a touchdown pass. They allowed Pittsburgh to get into the red zone 7 times with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
I'm not really high on Seattle, how they've been playing as of late. They squeaked by in a couple wins on game-winning drives. And those are just, you can't expect that to happen week in, week out.
I took the 3 here. I mean, obviously at 2.5, I wouldn't play it, but if it gets back up to 3 at DRF, I'd look to get it in. Murray, 24, 14, and 2, 63% ATS. Carroll as a road favorite, 43% ATS. NFC West favorites, 29.4. Pete Carroll, that is 0.4% ATS. We need to remember the thing about Murray is he's playing for next year. Cardinals don't know what they're doing. There's plenty of teams that need a quarterback. So Murray's going to be giving this phenomenal effort because he needs that money. I know how as crazy as it sounds. Metcalf, for whatever reason, they just don't give Metcalf the ball enough. It is remarkable how little he is featured in that passing game. So I don't think they're going to be able to take advantage of the issues the Cards have in the secondary. DVOA, the Seahawks are bottom 10, defending the run, defending the pass, total defense. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Cards. I think the Cards are going to be able to run the ball with Connor, like you said. And again, this is another team that basically needs to win to get in. So I'm going to take the Cards here plus the 3.
Final game, Sunday Night Football. This game is one of the weirder games for me as a gambler because this is where I struggle. I don't like Miami overall as a team very much. I don't think they're that good. I think every time they've played good teams, they've been exposed. They should have got beat by Dallas a few weeks ago, too. If Dallas was able to score on that opening drive, things would have been different in the game. Their defense is now really banged up, too, with Chubb. They're already missing Phillips. They're already missing Phillips, and now Waddle's banged up, and Hill's out. But
then
this is a spot at home. Or go ahead.
If you're the Ravens, Pittsburgh losing helps Buffalo. Do you purposely just kind of I don't think Harbaugh would ever do this, but do you purposely just kind of say, okay, we're going to tank so Pittsburgh can win and try to keep Buffalo out? I don't think Harbaugh would do that, but it's an interesting scenario.
Yeah, because that's a team that you think with a like a high ceiling that would be able to compete with the Ravens, especially as well as they're playing. I don't like Miami as a team, but this spot as a 3-dog at home, you can't. I cannot lay it with Buffalo up to a field goal here, but it's a weird situation because I do like Buffalo a lot more right now, and overall as a team in a basic playoff situation, one game needing to win, I would take Buffalo every day of the week, but I'm not going to lay the number with Buffalo because it just value-wise, it's tricky. For me as a gambler, I just don't think I can take Buffalo laying 3 on the road, even despite not liking Miami very much and thinking they're overvalued this year. So this will be another game that I probably end up staying away. If this floated up to above a field goal, I'd actually jump on the Miami side for sure. And I'd still be okay with anyone wanting to play Miami at +3. If it was under a field goal, I definitely would stay away. But this is where what I think about a team versus the spot and the number, right? As a gambler, we have to weigh those things a lot. And the novice or people who don't gamble as much don't want to take the numbers into account. They'll say, oh, they're going to beat them. It doesn't matter what the number is. But you can't do that when you're betting often. And we've seen how accurate these numbers are in the NFL. You can't just give away points or half a points or 2 points. If this game was a pick'em, if this game was Bills -1, I'm fine with that, with not having to worry about the Bills cover with margin. But now all of a sudden that you're up to a field goal, I just can't do it with Buffalo, even though in my heart, I think Buffalo wins this game by double digits. How do you see this? Do you play anything here? Bills, Miami, Sunday
I'm
Night
so
Football.
invested in Buffalo futures. I can't play Buffalo. And I'll probably maybe hedge a little bit, but I'd have to math-wise kind of figure out how to hedge. In terms of this game, teams that lost by 35 points or more, like the Dolphins did, 63% ATS the following game. Teams that lost by 35 points or more that are dogs are 67% ATS. The numbers and the situations say to play the Dolphins. I'm going to hope for a 3.5. If I can get a 3, look, I'm fine rolling that out. Tyreek Hill's house burnt down today.
That was bizarre.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, who knows what was in a little electrical fire? Was there something shady? We really don't know what's his mental state going to be. Because I'm not going to lie, like, when I first moved out to Chicago, there was an apartment fire where I lived. not in my unit, but in the unit I was on the 5th floor. The unit on the 1st floor had a fire. That kind of disrupted me a little bit more than I would realize. I was
Absolutely. It just kind of messes with your
yeah,
schedule, your
and
routine. He's already
yeah.
a little bit banged up on top of that.
How is that going to mess around with everything? Plus, you have a young kid in the house. Waddle's a little bit banged up. Finn's banged up on the defensive line and offensive line. Do the Bills have the speed to keep up with Waddle and Hill? Waddle, like I said, banged up. Mozart banged up. There's a lot of injuries on this game, but look, trends and numbers say to play the Dolphins. That's what I'm going to do here. Buffalo, look, if they lose, they're out, which is crazy to think. If they win, they could be the 2 seed. So
they could win, be the 2 seed, get a home game, win the division, or lose and be completely out.
Which is absolutely crazy. It's basically, I think that's it. Win and you're in with them, right?
So for the Bills, clinch the division with a win. With a Buffalo win, they're in the playoffs, obviously. They tie or a Pittsburgh loss, Jacksonville loss, Houston, Indy tie. So they need Pittsburgh, Jacksonville to lose, basically. One of those 2 teams. Because Houston and Indy aren't going to tie. So they need one of those 2 teams to lose. Because if Pittsburgh and Jacksonville win and Buffalo loses, they're out.
Yeah.
And those 2 teams are going to be favored in games that we talked about where they have a lot more to play for. Pittsburgh's playing against a Ravens team that has absolutely nothing to play for. Jacksonville does the same thing. They're playing against teams that have nothing to play for at all, and they have every opportunity. So pressure is on Buffalo here, a team that everyone feels like if they were to get in the playoffs, in any one-game scenario, they could beat anyone. On the road, at home, especially with Josh Allen running and being able to make big plays. And their defense is playing a little bit better. They were actually able to make a few moves because their injuries happened so early in the season. They were able to bring a couple extra bodies in and change their scheme around a little bit, and it's helped them. But wow, talk about a little bit of Russian roulette here for the Bills. I mean, you go all the way up to, like you said, the 2 seed, or you could be all the way out of the playoffs here. And by Sunday morning, we'll have a little better idea of exactly some of the players who are in. We'll give you some more props to play. We'll talk a little parlay play there and how you can get some action this weekend. But this is one of those to tread lightly because next week and the next 6 weeks, we'll have big games, lots of props, lots of different things we can play in these spots, matchups we're waiting for. Don't force it because it's the final week of the season and NFL Week 18. We made it through another one, Eric. Week 18 here. What is your schedule going to be like? I know you've been off a little. What do you have? Do you have a podcast this week coming up or what?
No
what
podcast
can we
this
expect?
week. I have one more week of downtime before I'm back in Chicago. So I'm going to be hanging out with the family and doing some family stuff. So you will not see me until Tuesday on my live stream, 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay, well, the folks, good luck to all of you out there this weekend. And make sure to give us a follow on social media. Check out ETOF21. Give me a follow. It's me, Gino B. We'll be back with plenty more NFL in the coming weeks as we have some big playoff games to discuss. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here. Remember, DRF Sportsbook. If you're in the state of Iowa, use the promo code FAST